has very striking applications. No time to talk about them, but happening right now. In fact, Iran is a case in point. U.S. policy in Iran, or U.S. policy towards Cuba, is overriding public opinion in the U.S., but that's normal. Public opinion's not considered relevant unless it's organized and active, and too much of a nuisance. But it's not in these cases. But what's more interesting about Iran and Cuba is that U.S. policy is overriding major economic interests. So in the case of Cuba, agribusiness, energy corporations, pharmaceutical corporations want to establish normal relations, just as the large majority of the American population do, for their own interests. But that's not going to be allowed. And the reason is very clear. It was stated back in the days of the Kennedy administration very clearly. Cuba is engaged in what was called successful defiance of U.S. policies going back to the Monroe Doctrine. And that cannot be tolerated. As Arthur Schlesinger put it, he was Kennedy's Latin American advisor, the real threat of Cuba, he said, is Castro's idea of taking matters into your own hands and working for the interests of your own population, is that could appeal to others in Latin America who are faced with the same problems, and therefore we better get rid of it right there. No successful defiance can be tolerated. And the savagery of the U.S. attack against Cuba is really quite incredible. And not just the terrorist wars, which are bad enough, but the details of the surveillance of Cuba to make sure that if any ship stops anywhere in the world and picks up something that has a little bit of Cuban nickel in it, they've got to be barred from international commerce. The U.S. expends enormous efforts on that and has for 50 years. And that makes sense. You cannot accept successful defiance. It's just too dangerous. Same in Iran. American energy corporations would be happy to go in and exploit Iran's resources, and they're usually influential. I'll stop in a second. But they're being overridden in this case because Iran has also been engaged in successful defiance since 1979. Well, I was going to say something about the situation at home, but I'll leave that for the moment. It's, in brief, everything's happening exactly as you should expect. You take a look at Obama's financial base. It's mostly financial industries. So yes, they're getting wonderful gifts, and they're very happy about it. Business press is gloating about, months ago, the business was gloating that the insurers have won the health care battle. Yeah, they're getting everything they wanted. The big banks that caused the crisis are better off than before. They've been merged into still bigger banks, which means that they get the huge government insurance policy, which is called too big to fail. So you ought to take risks. Makes sense to take risks because you'll make a lot of money out of it, and you're going to be paid off when things go wrong, as they surely will. So there's nothing unpredictable about it. Oh, one last comment on the gap between public opinion and public policy, which is very significant. Technical name for it, it's called a democratic deficit. That's evident on health care, on the bailout, on foreign policy, just about everywhere you look. It's been pretty well studied, in fact. Now, that's not a law of nature. It doesn't have to be that way. It's been overcome in the past by militant, organized, dedicated action, and it can be again. That's the only word I'll say about hope, because you people are the hope, so I have to talk to you about it.